Welcome back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin Sambois.
Welcome back. So today we are going to talk about the effects of lack of communication. Mm-hmm. So we were just quickly talking to a colleague about the effects of when people don't communicate. And it's funny he mentioned that because we've been dealing with that also at work. I've been dealing with this in multiple arenas.
Me too.
Not just here, because I think people just have this assumption that or you should have known, or I thought you would have figured it out. And it's like, if you don't communicate how you feel or communicate the expectation, then that just leaves so much room for misinterpretation or even toxicity in a work culture or even a personal space. When it's like, if you had just told me what you need to tell me, at least it would have given an opportunity to have dialogue and we could have figured it out.
Right. Or if it's not fixed and the other party thinks it is, but you have not in your heart felt that it was fixed, but the other person thought it was fixed, and that now you're on your own dying here.
Yeah.
Because the other person I'm living my best life, because if I handle something and I believe we fixed it, I'm living my butterfly best life, right? But if you in return are not, or you didn't get what you wanted and you don't communicate that, then at the end of the day, that's not my fault, right? And I think a lot of people are in this scenario, especially like in business, right? So I think about large organizations or small organizations, politics. My God, I've seen some debates. It's like communication is so important, and people complicate it more than it is. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes is a person's lack of vision and understanding want their place. But then it's also like intention is very important to me. So, and we talked about this, about the energy. Like I sometimes miss it, but I really always try before I go somewhere and check my intention, because we're human. We are the product of our surroundings and our circumstances. So I'll be like, all right, how am I feeling? I'm about to walk into this room. What am I feeling right now? What do I want to walk away with? What do I want to bring to this space? I don't think everybody does that, And if you forget to do that and you're in a space and you're noticing that your energy is shifting, right, the room, because sometimes we are very powerful and more than we know. And sometimes our own energy can shift the place, can shift the energy, and you're like, oh, this is not what I intended that to do. You can do your best to still turn it around, you know what I mean, if you know what's going on. But not everybody's aware, and I think awareness is so important. So whether you are in a school, unless you're in politics or at a business, a nonprofit or corporate, your intention and what you do with it could break or really make an organization or a department. Like I think a lot of the failures that I've seen in a lot of places is not the person or the people were bad or the product was bad. It's really the intention of some of the people in it that just brings that negativity in it and just destroys the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. And I really appreciate you talking about the energy, because even as parents, school just started back up, and, I sometimes have the harshness of just being very forward about expectations for school. And it's not that I mean to, be harsh. It's just sometimes I think too, as parents, we have to be better about communicating, how we are in those moments. Because that particular evening, I was already overstimulated. I was tired, 20,000 things. It's like, listen, had just finished getting all their stuff together, had meetings that entire day. It was just a lot happening in that particular day. And one of my children was more so, just kind of, that priority list of things were just more social than they were about actually, the school year.
Educational.
Yeah. So it's just and last year was not their strongest year academically. And although, I recognize that sometimes you might not have the best academic year. And so, I'm willing to give passes, but I also feel you need to be able to take some accountability, and so on and so forth. But so I'm sitting here, I'm just hearing all the things, the social aspects of, the first day. And I'm just I need you. So where, I heard nothing about the academic intention or the, what you plan to do to have a more successful school year. And so
less drama.
Yeah, right. So because I wasn't like feeding into all of the social pieces, it really upset her. And it was to the point or him. And so it was to the point that, you know, this particular child got upset, was crying, saying that I was being negative, and that, like, you know, I basically was like, you know, I ruined the first day, and that what else was said? Something along the lines that, you know, just, I mean, it was just like this whole dramatic, but it seemed very, I mean, it was dramatic to me, but it was very real to her about, you know, my reaction or my response.
Or lack of support.
My lack of support.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, but in my mind, I feel like, you know, I felt the complete opposite. It was very hard for me. I didn't like the fact that she was upset, but I also felt it was hard for me to be empathetic because I'm also like, I fall for this every year.
It's a manipulation tactic.
Yeah. And so part of me was like, don't fall for this because that could be this. And I need you to recognize that, you know, you have to take accountability. You got to prioritize, so on and so forth. And so I think, like, you know, we were saying two different things, you know, and so being able to get on the same page. So she didn't speak to me the rest of the night. And I did go back in there and I apologized for my approach. It wasn't that I was trying to kick off her school year in a negative.
Minimize her excitement.
Yeah, I was trying to get her to understand that I need her to step it up this year. So in reflection, I could have gone about it a little differently. And so I did apologize. And I think oftentimes as parents, like, we have to be willing to apologize because then that shows our kids that we do make mistakes. And I wasn't trying to come across as being, you know, negative or dismissive of her, you know, excitement. It's just, for me, it's just like, I need her to, you know, I just need her to step it up. And I do believe my delivery was wrong. So the way I chose to communicate in that moment, I knew my energy was off. I knew I was tired. So I really I shouldn't have engaged in that conversation, but I didn't really have a choice. It was there. And so then I think she overheard me talking to my other kid about it. And I think that further upset her because I was telling her, I was like, I'm not playing with her this year.
Oh, God. Or him.
I expect X, Y, and Z. And so I think that really, so I just,
that was the edge.
That was the edge. And so that was like, so, you know, it's hard because I think as parents, you know, you want to be able to have open communication with your children and you want to be able to have, you know, like that rapport. But I do think that we have to be able to self-reflect. Mm-hmm. Are we in a space to be able to have these conversations? Because like I said, that day was already a lot going on. And there's just been a lot going on in general. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, I couldn't find the muster to care about all the fun things. And I know that was hard because that's typically what kids get excited about. They get excited about the fun things. And I just was more of like, what about the other things? And she didn't want to talk about that. And my approach really just killed the whole vibe for her. And so, yeah, so my energy was all jacked up for the first day of school.
So communication could not be fruitful at that moment.
No, I should have just been like, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I'm going to have some tea.
Yeah, I'll come back. We'll talk about
strawberries.
this. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But I didn't. I proceeded with the conversation.
Because you thought you were ready.
Yeah, well, they don't even ask you if you're ready. They just come and dump all this mierda on you, and you got to go with it.
That's the Puerto Rican that came out so quick.
You're like, shit. I'm like, I got 20,000 things. You want to talk about your shoes matching your shirt, and you're going to take pictures. Can you take your video? I'm just like,
absolutely.
Are you going to be on time tomorrow? Because everything you're explaining to me sounds like we're going to be late. In my mind, that's exactly where I went to. It literally, when I saw her, I got home late from a meeting, and what triggered the whole thing was before I left, she said she was going to blow out her hair.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And when I got there, her hair was not blown out. It was in a bun. It was crazy. So I saw her and I was like, you didn't blow out your hair yet? Like, it's late. Like, you got to get ready for bed. She's like, I'm just going to do it in the morning. I said, you're going to do it in the morning? I know for a fact your hair takes an hour. So what time do you think you're going to get up which means you're going to turn a blow dryer on
4
at the wee hours of the morning.
Sometimes those can't leave because that's the time.
But the problem is like everybody's sleeping. So now you're going to wake up the whole house, blow drying your hair at the wee hours. So it's just like the whole thing blew my mind when you're home all day.
Because you wasn't thinking about everybody else.
No, she's like, no, I'm going to blow it out in the morning and I'm going to be late. I'm going to get Starbucks and my shirt's going to be cute. And I'm like,
my skirt.
And it just sent me like a firecracker into the sky. And I saw my whole life the next day being late, yelling at her. That means the other one's going to be late because I got to drop everybody off. So in my mind, seeing her hair in a bun triggered the first day of school. She's going to be late, which is going to make me late to get Adrian to school, which is going to make me late to work, which is going to mean I'm going to argue with her, which means I'm going to be pissed with Adrian. Like, all because she didn't want to do her hair the night before. So it's like, how are we supposed to communicate? When, so it's hard because you want to have these healthy dynamics, but I think as parents, we're juggling so many things. But in that case, I shouldn't have said nothing because it just triggered a whole meltdown and she was upset the whole night. And I think the next morning she did end up blowing out her hair before she went to bed.
Okay.
She did do it, but it was still like a touchy situation. I mean, she's speaking to me a little bit now. She's speaking to me, but the vibe was definitely... It was a vibe.
It was a vibe. What would you have done differently? Like if you could give yourself, you go back and just observe, you're like a little fly on the wall. What would you have done differently? The moment you felt triggered.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's hard because it's like, as parents, we have to play all these different characters. I just didn't have the energy to give a fuck in the moment.
Yeah,
I just didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't want to be like, what is your mom call it? What is it? Gentle parenting?
I didn't have it in me. Parents are just like, I don't really care. I don't care. Where would you want to wear it? Like, and I think that's the hard part. Like, you have to wear all these hats. It's like, I got to be excited for you. I got to go pack your bag. I got to answer the 20,000 emails I have.
I got to be your friend.
I got to, so it's just like, we don't have, like, it literally is too much.
That's why our parents didn't struggle too much because they would just have one setting. It was the chancla. Like, they had one setting.
Yeah.
You had no opinion or thought. So this whole thing would have never happened because there was no such thing as questioning, negotiating. It was like I said, and that was it. There was no after. There was none of that.
Yeah. And I feel bad because I didn't want to raise my kids in that way. Like,
Absolutely.
I didn't want my kids to be raised in like
a military.
Yeah,
house.
I didn't want that. But I see now that my mom's capacity was only so much because she by that time, she was a single parent. And so it's just like she's working, she had 4 kids, so she ain't got time to be sitting down talking about the first day of school. And she wasn't dropping me off. I was going to have to catch the bus. And so the fact that these kids have a bus and they want to be dropped off is even mind-blowing in itself.
No, it's lovely. And the fact that we're so great at accommodating. I don't want to use that word, but I was trying to find the best word. But it is because we want to give them the best, right? Like, we want to give them a little bit better of an experience. You're also spending time with them too, right? Like, that's a good way, especially when you're a busy parent. I think parents do it for that reason. And there has to be a balance, right? I think there is a balance of understanding like what they want to be in there for them, but also knowing that they are your responsibility and that you have to create a human being that can communicate in the future, right? Because if you start thinking about almost like the path that some of the youth now has, they're really good at, social media. They can communicate on social media. They do videos. They learn a dance in like record time.
Right.
And the lyrics of a song. Like, I am amazed by the level of memory capacity these people have, right? But when it comes to like the things that to us are very important, like being responsible in school, getting good grades, being respectful for your teachers and other people, getting your work done without me having to tell you, getting your chores done without me having to tell you, like those things, it's like they throw a blank. Like, unless you make a TikTok about that, they may never listen to you.
Right.
Like, so, parents, we have to start making TikToks, just an idea, because that is how they're communicating now.
Yeah.
Like this talkie, that's boring to them. They don't want that. If you didn't put it in a dance or in a video, you're just wasting your breath. at this point, right? This is where we are now. So
Yeah.
this is why school, they're struggling so much with school too, because
Yeah.
it's boring. These teachers are out here lecturing and asking them to read and do all these things. What kid is reading right now? What kid is like asked to read 30 minutes a day? They don't have time to read 30 minutes a day, but they will watch look at the screen time, 3 hours on TikTok a day, but they won't read, right? And when you look at the wealthy people, I mean, Barack Obama, Warren Buffett, all they say is that you have to read more. And for those of us that sometimes it's hard, even listening to audiobooks is good, but really they're telling you to read because we're losing what is that called? Not animation, it's not dream. It's when you're able to visualize things, right? So like when you're reading something, you can visualize it, where kids are no longer doing that. So the imagination. So we're losing our imagination because we're no longer just reading and imagining what could happen, right? Or sometimes even listening and imagining what could happen. Right now, you just look, everything is so stimulating. They're losing that piece. And then that's why school is boring. So they're not going to get good grades because the schools are not fun. And then education is not changing to accommodate the kids or that youth. So as parents are struggling. I can only imagine teachers. God bless every teacher that's still doing this work. I couldn't do it. It would be too hard for me. I would be in jail. Like, I just couldn't do it, because they have to stand there and get ridiculed. They have to deal with disrespectful kids. The kids want to put away their phones, like all of these things. I mean, if you at home are experiencing hardship, right? Imagine the teachers or another parents, and then parents want to get mad at the teachers for not doing their job of teaching their kids that don't want to learn. So, at that village that we talk about, in a way, we've been talking about, is a way that you also have to work with your teachers. I don't know how many parents know their teachers by name. I don't know how many parents now are going and talking to the teacher and say, hey, in front of the child, if you need something, you call me. Back in the day, for me, my mom, as little education as she has, she will go to the school, and my dad, and they will tell the teacher, they will give free reign to my teachers to educate and discipline me. And they're saying, if you need me, you call me. Like, I never wanted no parent to call my parents. Even when my dad spoke broken English, he would come to the school and he would tell that to every teacher. Mm-hmm. I hated that, but it was a way that I knew my parents were communicating with our teachers. I knew that there was like a solid, I wasn't going to put them like against each other. There was no way. Yeah. They were, like my dad listened to me and everything, but not more than he listened to the teacher. So is that even happening now? Do you know the kids' teachers? Have you talked to them? Have you said, and I'm not saying, but I'm saying as parents, have you asked them, if you need anything, here's my number, you call me. Or this child is dealing with this. Just know this may have been a difficult week at home. I don't know, like those things that will help the teacher have some compassion for the kid. Yeah. And then for parents to have some compassion for teachers, because you have with your 2 kids you're dealing with, they have 20, 30 kids. They have even more per class. They have 20, 30 kids per class they have to deal with. They have 7 classes. It's over. I don't know how they have the mental capacity.
It's a lot. And I mean, even I think the kids, when they come home from school, they're also overstimulated because they're in classes all day with like 20-ish students who all need different things.
Per class.
Yeah, per class. Because I've noticed that, more particularly with one of my kids, like he comes in and he's just like he don't even want to talk for about an hour. Like he's very like, he just wants to sit down. He wants to eat. He wants to watch a show. Like, I'll try to ask him, like, how was it? He's like, I'm fine. Like, he just don't even want to talk to me right now. He just needs a second, and he just wants to sit down. He don't want to talk about it. And the other day, I was eating with him. I took him to get some pizza, and I heard him on a video game arguing with somebody, which I don't really condone him being online playing video games. But there's a couple kids that apparently my husband has approved him to play with, and he has a headset on, so sometimes I can't hear the conversation, which I don't like, but Kent gave him a headset, and I heard him saying something like, well, friends don't talk to friends like that. And so I stopped, and I was trying to like hear the conversation, and he said something to the effect of like, well, I'm sorry, but don't unfriend me or something. So I'm instantly like, give me the headset. Like, I want to know what happened. So I walk in his room, like, what happened? And he's like, nothing. Like, he would not tell me. Made me so sad. I'm like, just tell me what happened. Wouldn't tell me. So I was like, well, let's go get the pizza, because we were getting pizza anyway. So we're waiting for the pizza. So I'm trying to like pry it out of him. I'm like, well, what happened? He was like, oh, it was just something on the game. And one of the kids got mad and said something mean to me. And I was like, well, what did you say back? You know, and he was just like, wow, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to say it because I'm not like, basically, he doesn't know how to trash talk as fast as some of the other kids, is what I gathered in the story. And I was trying to explain to him, I was like, well, you know, you can come to me for advice. I'm not going to be upset. You know, like, I want you to know that we can talk about these things. And he was just like, okay, but I don't think he bought it for a second. And so, you know, with him, like, being able to have conversations with him, like, and the way he processes is completely different than how the girls process things. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I tried to talk to Ken about it, and he was just like, yeah, I'll talk to him. And so it was just so opposite. And he's growing up, but it's also like they're growing up in a very different way than we grew up. And this whole technology world, and I don't know. I just, you know, I try not to be that parent, but it's just like,
it's hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard. And, you know, you want to protect your children, but you want to prepare them too, because I'm not always going to be with him. I'm not always going to be there. And, you know, I want to make sure that he feels comfortable enough to, you know, to tell me. He was not comfortable to tell me whatever happened on that video game. And I don't know if it was because he thought that I would tell him he can't be on the game.
Probably.
Because he knows
100%.
He knows how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm always on the edge, like, that's it. And I don't want to be that parent, but I'm so against it.
Yeah.
And my husband has always been so for it. And so I think he's like hesitant to tell me things because he thinks that it'll result in him not being able to. But the communication has broken down so much over the years because our kids are so ingrained to technology, whether it be, I mean, they don't even go play with real kids in the neighborhood. He's playing with some kid in Canada.
He sure is.
That kid don't even live here.
He loves it. Mm-hmm.
It's some kid in Canada. Like, I literally was like, who is this kid? And Ken's like, that kid lives in Canada. I'm like, and there's children running around outside. Like, you want to go play with these kids?
He don't want to do that. That's physical. That's physical.
He's like, no. He's on a headset with some kid from Canada arguing with him.
Mm-hmm. And that's what our kids are coming to. Like, they're building relationships online more than and is taking away the social aspect of it, which I think hopefully in school, when they're in school, they're getting this, right? Because they don't want to mingle with kids. Not like when we were growing up. I was outside the moment you allowed me to go. And into as late as I could. You know, playing with myself, waiting for that one game that I was going to get in January that I could go and show off, you know, my little ball, whatever, my doll. That's not how it's happening now.
No, they don't. They're texting, they're on Instagram, they're on Minecraft. I mean, this whole Minecraft world where you're building cities that aren't real. It's just so different. And it's hard because as we started this conversation about communication, it's like we're building a generation that they're not even communicating with, like, in a real way, like real time. And, you know, it's very hard. And as parents, it's just even harder trying to merge how we were raised versus how they are being. And we're raising them, but it's also the exposure of what they're exposed to. Because I would have never done a video game thing, but that's where his dad and I are different. And so it's hard when you have parents who are on two separate pages about how you're raising your children. You know, his dad is very like, oh, you can play online, you can watch scary movies, things that I would have been never on board about. And I tried to put my foot down about that early on. And it got to the point where they would just do it when I wasn't home. And I would pop up and catch them. So now it's like, you know, so it's hard because those were things that I never wanted for Adrian. And now he's already been exposed. That's what he likes. And so it's hard for me to have any weight on that. And, you know, I mean, yeah, I could, but it'll only be when I'm home.
Yeah. And it will create a lot of stuff now, too, because this is so the way that he is, it will create a disruption in his routine. But maybe implementing, I don't know, because I'm not a professional in this, but maybe implementing some things that don't involve electronics, right? So maybe as a family, like, you know, let me tell you, what is that called? Hucking Hills, they have great spaces with no internet. Like, there is no signal over there for nothing. You know, that's like a thing that they hate for a little bit, but they could enjoy.
Yeah, and we typically go, like, we would go on camping things like once a year, and they're starting to get to a point where they don't like it.
Yeah, you don't have to like it. Like, we're going where there's no internet.
Yeah.
You know, only like the firefighters are nearby. And, you know, because I think also when they're at this age, and I remember being this age, you don't want that, right? because you think it's not cool, but this is the memory that you're building for the future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, and I don't know how, you will do it, but I feel like incorporating those things, making that a priority, it is good because it's going to help. They have to communicate with you. There's nothing else. Like, we got games and we got fire pits. What you want to do?
Yeah.
There's no computers. We can watch a movie together, from this little VHS, But I think it's important because I'm worried that if the people that are younger than us right now are having a struggle communicating, and we're seeing this like night and day. Imagine the generation after them, and then after them, and then our little kids. Like, like Jaira is a baby now, but like, I mean, instead of talking, he's screaming now. So think about like, how are we, again, we can change the world, but even the girls that we serve, sometimes when they come into our program, they don't want to talk. They're very shy. You have to like continue to encourage and provide opportunities for them to talk. And now you see them giving speeches and getting on to talk. That took like months and years to get there.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, again, we are doing it here and not here. So what can we do in our own home to promote and encourage communication?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer.
So maybe next time, guys, when we come, we're going to get some resources for everybody. Because this is not an issue here.
Let us know what works in your household, because it's challenging. It really is challenging. And I think it's all circumstantial depending, when you're in parent mode, each kid is different. You're in work mode, millennials versus Gen X versus Gen Z versus whatever. What is it?
I don't even
boomers?
know. I stopped actually counting these names a long time ago. I already stopped because it's too much.
Yes.
You either in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s. This is how I classify. Are you a teenager? Are you a baby? Are you a toddler? Because I can't. That's too much names to remember.
But the thing is each one of those generations has a different way of communications. Like, they require different things. Granted, communication is communication, and we have to figure out a way to uniform it. But, I believe, and that's why I think it's critically important to ask people, what is your preferred method of communication? Like, do you want to call? Do you want a one-on-one text? Do you want to have weekly check-ins? Do you need, and that same thing goes with your kids. Same thing goes with your partner, your friend, whoever. We can't just assume how we choose and how we prefer, like, to communicate is how everybody prefers to communicate, because they don't. And that's where I think a lot of the major disconnect happens, is we are treating folks how we think they want to be treated or interacted with, and we're typically missing the mark.
Yeah. So I will ask, and if you don't provide the answer, that's on you.
Yes.
That's not what I'm going to say. We're going to ask. Try it out, for the next few weeks. Try it out with your kids and see how does that work. Because I would love to do something where we could come back and give some suggestions and some resources. We do some research to see how it's best to communicate with these different generations that I don't know the names and X's and letters of the alphabet for. That maybe we can provide some tools. I'm not the only one probably out here. Like, I'm so done with the names of these generations that I don't even know. I just try to treat everybody, respect them the same. Yeah. But you're right. It's not the same.
It's not the same. It's very different. And I think the more, especially how companies have moved to hybrid, virtual,
or are fighting the hybrid model.
Yeah, or fighting the hybrid model, or it's just a lot. You go into meetings now, everybody's on Zoom, and your camera ain't even turned on. Like, I've walked into places and people are on video or Zoom with like tons of people, ain't nobody's camera on, and Like, you work with people, you don't even know what they look like.
That's right. Now, if you look crazy, you should keep your camera off.
No, that's okay.
However.
But, just knowing that it's like the connection piece of communication, I think is also like, I don't know. It's just things have changed so vastly where it's like, I think that's where you also have breakdown in communication when there's no connection.
No facial
connection, or at least if you're bringing people together at least quarterly or every other month, like to be able to have like some level of pulse.
Yeah. And it's okay to make some things mandatory. So like for a team that I work with, I understand, I always want to be on camera. Like I always don't want to be ready for big camera either. Like it takes me forever. But I do make it a mandatory that once a month people have to be on camera, and it has to be like, I have to see your face, because at this point, I don't know if you're alive. Right.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of like a safety measure, to be honest, you know, it's a check-in. Because sometimes somebody can look, you know, distressed and they're not saying in their voice, but if you look at their face, they may not say, you see something is wrong.
Yeah.
Then you want to go ahead and kind of check out and see what's going on, reach out to them personally, you know. So, I mean, some people, they look distressed on camera. So whoever you have, if you're in charge of a team, like I think it's okay to either ask for the whole team once a month to be on camera only, or when you do your one-on-one with that person, ask them to be on camera, because this is the only way you're going to check in on them. Yeah. And even then you may miss some stuff, but at least you done the best of your ability, right? To get to know and see if they're okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us and tuning in. In the comments, let us know what's your preferred method of communication, or any tips or, you know, tools you can provide us, as we are obviously also navigating these very important topics. And so we appreciate any feedback or advice you might want to share with us, or anybody listening and following. So thank you for tuning in. And as we always say here at True Print for Life, it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited, and we hope that you follow us on Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.